Coast. The baby was laughing. That was the part that made it so easy to miss. Coast. Marcus Webb was 37, former Army logistics officer, now a project manager for a regional construction firm. Methodical by training and by temperament, he did not startle easily. He believed in visible evidence. He did not believe in reading into things. Coast. He was reading into nothing when his Rottweiler spent an entire Tuesday evening in a state of contained urgency around his 6-month-old son, because his son was laughing the whole time and laughing babies did not signal danger. Coast. Titan was 5 years old, 88 pounds, the quieter and more grounded of the two Rottweilers Marcus had owned in adulthood. He was not a dog who went looking for problems. Coast. He lay where he was asked to lie, and came when he was called and had, in 4.5 years of living in this house, never once acted in a way that prompted concern. Coast. Tuesday evening started normally. Marcus's wife Celeste was at her sister's. Marcus was on the living room floor with Ezra and the baby bouncer, working through a project timeline on his laptop while Ezra explored the concept of his own feet and found them endlessly funny. Coast. Titan began at approximately 6:15. He rose from his spot by the TV and crossed the room and stood beside the bouncer, not touching it, standing beside it, looking at Ezra, looking at Marcus, looking at the wall behind the bouncer. Coast. His posture was not alarmed. His ears were forward, tail horizontal and still. A dog who was paying close attention to something. Marcus looked at the wall. White paint, nothing. He told Titan to go lie down. Titan went, lay down and rose again 40 seconds later and returned to stand beside the bouncer in the same position. Coast. Marcus closed his laptop. He was not concerned yet. He was curious in the way that people who trust evidence are curious. Something here was sending a signal and the signal was as yet unread. Coast. Titan moved to the wall behind the bouncer. He pressed his nose flat against it, 3 inches above the baseboard, and inhaled. Long, sustained, deliberate. He looked at Marcus over his shoulder and then pressed his nose to the wall again. Coast. Marcus got up. He put his palm against the wall. It was warm, not room temperature warm. Warmer than that. He moved his hand left, then right. An 18-inch section, behind and slightly below the electrical outlet, ran noticeably warmer than the surrounding surface. Coast. He stood in his living room with his hand on a warm wall and became very still the way people become still when a piece of information is assembling into something they do not want to be true. If you stay for stories about what animals detect before we do, you are in the right place. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Coast. He moved Ezra to the kitchen. He called an electrician named James Ferris, who had done work in the house 2 years prior, and answered his phone on the third ring because Marcus explained in the flat, precise language of someone who has assessed the situation and removed panic as a variable. Coast. James arrived in 22 minutes. He cut power to the living room circuit at the breaker and opened the wall section behind the outlet with a reciprocating saw. Coast. The wiring behind it, original knob and tube from a 1952 renovation improperly fused into a modern circuit by a previous owner, had been running hot inside the wall cavity for an indeterminate period. Coast. The junction point where old wiring met new had experienced resistive heating that had scorched the surrounding wood framing. The wood had not yet ignited the wall surface insulation that had begun to break down. Coast. James looked at the open wall cavity for a moment. Then he said, "This was not tonight. This has been building for a while. You're lucky you caught it when you did." Coast. Marcus stood in his living room with the 6-month-old on his hip and looked at the blackened wood inside his wall and thought about Titan standing beside the bouncer and pressing his nose against the baseboard and looking over his shoulder. Coast. Has your dog ever done something that looked like nothing until it was clearly everything? Tell us in the comments. These stories deserve to be heard. Dogs do not detect fire. They detect the chemical precursors to fire. Coast. Resistive heating in electrical systems produces a specific profile of volatile organic compounds. Pyrolysis byproducts, plasticizer decomposition gases, subtle combustion adjacent molecules that begin to off-gas from insulation and wood well before any visible smoke or heat is detectable at the surface. Coast. The olfactory resolution required to detect these compounds at the concentrations present behind an interior wall is not available to human sensory systems. It is available to a dog who is paying attention to something his owner cannot smell, cannot see, and has no way to locate without following the dog's nose to the baseboard. Coast. Titan had been pressing his nose to that exact section of wall, 3 inches above the baseboard, the warmest point. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who never ask for anything in return. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. Coast. The house was inspected the following week. 3 additional wiring concerns were found and corrected. The living room was rewired properly. The work took 4 days. Marcus and Celeste and Ezra stayed at Celeste's sister's house during the project. Titan went with them. Coast. He slept outside Ezra's temporary bedroom door every night, which was not where he normally slept, and nobody moved him. The next story is about a dog who sat in a specific corner of a nursery for 11 nights before anyone realized the baby monitor had been shown in the wrong room. Coast. Marcus looked up the behavioral literature afterward, the way he looked everything up methodically with citation. He found the same set of findings every time. Olfactory detection of electrical failures and early-stage fire precursors in domestic dogs. Documented, replicable, still not widely known. Coast. He read one study twice. He printed one page, he filed it in the folder where he kept things that were evidence of things he had been wrong about, which was the most important folder he had.